Hi, everybody. It's John. I'm really hoping that this is coming across and that you hear the audio of my voice. So if you do hear the audio of my voice, I invite you to say so, um, because I'm just a little jumpy on this. A little jumpy on the microphone. There are things, despite being in radio for many, many years, that I just do not understand about how audio gets across. But I'm going to assume it's okay. I'm going to assume somebody would say something if it wasn't. I'm assuming Sherry, at the very least, would jump in. I do hope Sherry's here. So, the episode this week was with Joel Kim Booster, and I'm getting a lot of messages about it. I think a lot of people are listening to it. Patton Oswalt retweeted about it. Gary Gulman retweeted about it. And a lot of Peter Sagal, a lot of attention is being turned toward this episode. And that is great. You know, could always use the attention. We love attention. Those are my dogs that are barking. I don't know what. Probably because they imagined a rabbit and then decided it was time to run. So, Joel Kim Booster, one of the more uncomfortable interviews I've done in a very long time. He's a great guy. He was nice. He was polite, sweet guy. But it was uncomfortable because when you're faced with depression like that, when it's that deep and entrenched and calcified, you can't argue with it. You can't argue with somebody in a different reality than you are. You can't reason with them. You can't even really understand the world building that they're doing. It's a little like science fiction. You know, it's like trying to talk about the weather with Luke Skywalker when you're expecting to talk with Mark Hamill. Luke Skywalker lives in a different world, in a different universe, in a universe where you're deep in space. Hi, Sherry. When you're deep in space and there's still things called Falcons, or there's who was it, Benicio del Toro doing a French accent because his character comes from space France. So MT, the entire state of Montana, says the episode was super validating. I write in my journals when I'm depressed because I find I almost don't remember how it feels to be in that fog once I'm temporarily out. That's a good insight, and that's good practice. But yeah, like, I talked about in the end of the episode too, that I did away with the idea of the sort of detached, objective interviewer. It did become a legit conversation. Hi Mary, I try to make interviews that sound as much like conversations as possible while not making them conversations, because it is a one-sided affair. I'm the one gathering information. I'm the one extracting information from the other person. They don't ask me many, if any, questions. And that's the format, but you try to make it sound like two people just shooting the breeze, because that information in the interview will be more easily absorbed and digested that way. So that's normally what happens. With this one, I found myself talking to him, reasoning with him, and it really, I did away with that idea, and I was trying to help him by talking him out of his depression, which I don't normally do. I'm usually the one that tells people you can't do that. I'm the one who tells people there's no reasoning with this stuff. You can't point out, yeah, but look at all these great things that are going on in your life. But I kept being tempted to say exactly that. I think I can have an understanding of what depression is, but my sense of wanting to help a human, which isn't uniquely mine, that happens with any human who has empathy, just overrode it because his need was so deep. And yeah, like I said in the intro, it's not what we were expecting from Joel, but I'm really glad that we got it. Yeah, that's I just reading this comment from Kyler about apologizing for being a bummer, which is also really common and completely unnecessary. Like I said in the interview, I was really honored that he was sharing a genuine self with me. And he's many things. We're all many things. But that he was able to share that side of him was a big relief. I sort of I go back and forth. I think we made the right decision in not playing clips of Joel's stand-up or his sitcom appearances, stuff like that. And I think something could have been gained by hearing the contrast between his performance self and this side of his real self. I think ultimately, though, I'm glad that we didn't do that, because I think that the person we heard was a version of him. The person he performs as is more an aspect of him, if that makes sense. Like, we talked to a genuine 100% person who is in this state of being. The side of him that does stand-up is that person never fully exists in the world that Joel's in. I don't know. It's a tough one because those clips are really funny and entertaining. And so maybe I just wanted to like be unsparing to give you more of that. But I don't know. So Kyler asks, is there anything else you wish you could have talked about? I'm trying to think. I wish I could know more about his family, because Joel does talk about his family in his stand-up. He talks about how his brother also turned out to be gay. I believe they're both adopted. Joel was adopted from Korea by a white family in Illinois, and I know at least one other of his siblings is adopted as well. But he was homeschooled till he was 16, and I think there's a lot to be dug into there about his upbringing, the cultural conservatism vis-a-vis his homosexuality. I mean, he did mention that his dad had never seen anything that he had done. So I'd like to dig into that. I sort of felt like we needed to acknowledge that and get to a lot of other things, lest we think that grief was the reason why he's depressed. The reason he's depressed is that he's depressed. And certainly grief can be a contributing factor to that exacerbating, but I thought we had a lot more ground to cover. So I kind of settled for, here's an indication of where he's coming from, but I wanted to spend more time in the moment. Phoebe Robinson interviewed Joel on So Many White Guys. I love Phoebe Robinson. Where he talked about his family a lot. Okay, cool. Hopefully that episode is still available. I don't know what they do with their archives. But yeah, that'd be a good one to hunt down. A lot of it is in his stand-up, though, and talking about his nephew being born and what that meant. It's just done in this sort of Joel as the hot gay guy persona. But it could be pretty revealing. It's certainly interesting to listen to some of that autobiographical stand-up now that I've heard this side of him, and kind of see the dimensionality of that. So yeah, I mean, and with the tail end of the show, I thought it was just a good time to kind of talk about, what he did was beautiful. I slipped out of my traditional role, but I don't want to make it about me, and I don't want to beat myself up over that. But it's like a therapy thing. Like, when something unusual happens, you don't need to judge it as good or bad, but it's worth observing and inspecting. That's sort of the cognitive behavioral therapy approach of you can have cognition of what's going on, and then you choose the behavior. So something happens that is very shocking, or let's say that makes you angry. There's an injustice that you perceive. The cognitive behavioral therapy approach would be to say, oh, there was an injustice there. Okay, what do I think about that? How do I feel about that? What am I going through? Oh, I'm angry. I'm really angry about that. Okay, what am I going to choose to do about that? Because a lot of times people will take the shortcut and just say, well, because I feel angry, I need to yell. Because I'm feeling this strong feeling, it's such a strong feeling, that affects how demonstrative I need to be with putting that out. And the CBT way would be to say, okay, I'm really angry. What's the best way to handle this? Is it to talk to a person right away? Is it to come back to that person tomorrow morning and talk about it? Is it to write a letter to somebody else about what happened? But it's a measure of self-determinism. It's a measure of agency that you get to make that decision. So if you have more questions about the Joel interview, please do let me know. And please, you can email us. You can tweet me about it. That's fine. Toss it in here if you want. I will say next week we have Anna Sale on from the show Death, Sex, and Money, which I think is one of the better podcast names out there in the world. And it's all something I've often asked is, how do I start a conversation about mental illness? How do I approach someone about that? How do I say when I'm concerned? And I think there's a measure of people who ask me that who are talking not about a third person, but about themselves. So that's addressed as well. And Anna's really great. I mean, I love a good origin story about why someone does the work they do. In Anna Sale's case, she had come to the end of her first marriage. The marriage had concluded, and it's tough. There's no simple divorce in the world. There's always something that goes with it. So she had to have difficult conversations, and got kind of hooked on the idea of difficult conversations as a construct in and of itself. So she started writing about it, started a podcast about the 3 difficult topics: death, sex, and money, and has a book called Let's Talk About Hard Things, where she adds family and identity to death, sex, and money. So it's a top 5. Abigail, I wondered if he said anything that indicated that he considered not doing the interview. He didn't seem pleased to be there. No, he didn't. I don't know. I mean, we went over everything with him and his people of exactly what the show was and what to expect. I don't think he had listened to episodes. But yeah, I was picking up on that a little bit. If he thought that it was going to be a kind of comedy performance show, but pretty much right out of the gate, he showed who he really was. And I think it ended well with him being glad he did it. It's interesting. I haven't heard anything. And Gabe, I don't know if you've heard anything from his reps, but I haven't heard anything from Joel about what he thought. He did like one tweet that mentioned the show. I can't remember if it was mine or somebody responding, but he hit like on Twitter one time. And I haven't seen any tweets about it. I hope that he wasn't surprised by what was in there, because it was stuff that he said, and we were very clear about that. Nope, not a lick, says Gabe. Haven't heard anything. So that's interesting too. I hope he was happy with how it went. I think a lot of people were. Maybe all the love that he's getting on social media will help in some way. But it's a helpless feeling, though, when, I want to help this guy, even though I don't know him, even though the only conversation I've ever had with him was the one you heard on the episode. But there's nothing you can really do. You know, it's like the conversation I had with Stephanie Whittles Wax. Like you kind of have to do your best and then hope for the best. And usually it's more hoping for the best than doing your best. And then, so Anna Sales next week. Then we have Kelly Williams Brown, who wrote the book that is my favorite book title in a long time, Easy Crafts for the Insane. And so we're going to talk about her story, and we're going to talk a lot about crafting. And we even made a video where I made a craft with her, and hers turned out really good. So that's it for now. I'm on my way out the door here. Just interviewed Lisa Hanawalt, who created Tuca and Birdie, which was a lovely, lovely interview and a show that you should watch, especially if you're interested in anxiety and sex bugs. There are sex bugs on that show. So I leave you with that thought. Sex bugs, over and out. Bye.